So we are here today to celebrate the work of folks who participated in our Summer Institute program last year. And these people are all individuals who received a CARLA Language Center scholarship to attend a Summer Institute. This is an ongoing collaboration that we have with the CLA Language Center. We're running this program again. So folks in this room are eligible to apply for this program. There's information in the back of the room. So we have colleagues from 3 of the language departments who are going to be presenting. We have 3 folks from Spanish and Portuguese studies. So Stephanie Anderson, who's right here, Letty Warren, who's right here, and Colin Diver, who's sitting right over here. We also have 2 colleagues from GNSD. So Rachel Dodson is right over here. And then we also have Kyle, I didn't ask how you pronounce your last name. Corinta. So Kyle Corinta is right here. And then we have 2 colleagues from French and Italian. So we have Chloe Hagan, who's right there, and Sally Kessler, who's right here. So each person is going to give you kind of a teaser of what they learned in the Summer Institute. They're going to speak for 3 minutes, and then they'll be positioned at these high top tables around the room so that you can interact with them and hear a little bit more about what they learned. So this is a very informal gathering. You're welcome to help yourselves to more food as we go, and we encourage you to interact with everybody and just have a good time today. So I am going to pass the mic over to Stephanie, who's going to get us started.
Okay, I'm Stephanie Anderson, and I teach Spanish and Portuguese. And I went to the Reimagining Portfolios online institute, and so I originally went. I teach a fifth semester Spanish course, and we have a portfolio project that we've done for many years. And so my kind of thinking was like, okay, could I come out with something new for this portfolio project? So I just highlighted a few things that I've learned. I'll talk to you about how I'm planning to use it, which is actually not in this semester class. But okay, so portfolios in the language classroom, they can take on many forms. So I'm giving you 3 examples: a diary portfolio, something that it's a diary, right? Maybe once a week or every day. We write something, and this is our portfolio over the course of the semester. There's a categorical portfolio for maybe we have different topics that we study. That's very common in our Spanish classes, for example. So maybe I'm going to showcase my best work in our environment theme. I'm going to showcase my best work in our chapter about human rights, for example. And then there is, I guess, the showcase portfolio with work that you really kind of polished and maybe have gone through drafts and more. And then these are my final versions for this showcase portfolio. So how I am going to incorporate this is actually my Portuguese class. My Portuguese class, we're doing a social justice unit on Brazilian slam poetry, and part of this unit, students are going to create a portfolio, and they're going to have reactions. So our very first day, when I present this slam poetry topic, and tell them we're going to have a slam poetry event, and so asking, what are your reactions? What do you think of when you think of slam poetry? What is it about? All that kind of stuff. And then eventually students will choose their social justice issue they want to write a poem about. They'll make a mind map that will go in their portfolio. They're going to make a poster for the poetry slam event. They'll have a draft of their poem. They'll do some peer comments in a final draft of their poem. So that's what I have imagined. I haven't done it yet, so stay tuned. My 4 students would be so happy to know that I'm going to invite you all to our poetry slam. May 1st, 9 Anyway, so if we talk about opportunities, right, for incorporating portfolios or reimagining portfolios, students get the opportunity to demonstrate their learning in multiple ways, and they get to reflect, and they get to personally connect with content that maybe they don't in some other more traditional assessment. There are challenges. So portfolios require students to take risks. They require them to be independent. It can challenge them to think about ways of demonstrating their learning beyond kind of the more traditional ways. Instructors, some challenges can be, it is a shift, right? So shifting from a teacher-centered to learner-centered classroom. And that might not be like just natural and easy for all of us. And also evaluation. How do you evaluate? How can you see that students have demonstrated I've learned something, right? And then there's challenges in higher ed. So it's challenging the culture, like these types of portfolios can challenge the culture of higher ed that is rooted in values of white supremacy. So that idea of power of the written word, right? The only way we can show that we've learned something is by writing. There is only one right answer, and this hierarchical, and the more is better, right? So these portfolios are challenging that. And the reason why I didn't, or I haven't yet figured out how to implement this in a 5th semester class, is that it is writing intensive. And so to have that W, right? I feel like that is very traditional higher ed value. Like, how do we still maintain the W, but give students more ways to express their learning? So that's some of my takeaways.
Hey y'all, I'm Rachel. I teach in the Department of German, Nordic, Slavic, and Dutch, teaching German. And the institute that I attended was using the web for communicative language learning. And I actually really liked this. It was asynchronous over the course of like 5 weeks, I think it was. So I was able to kind of do things at my own pace, kind of engage with the material just kind of on my own, which I really liked. But when I was doing this institute, I was kind of thinking, okay, like how can I plan lessons using technology without it just being really overwhelming for the students, and kind of figuring out a way to make it so that it's usable both in the physical classroom and also online. So my biggest takeaway from this is that technology in the classroom is a tool, not the goal in and of itself. So with that, it was more that these web tools are meant to supplement lessons as opposed to be the focus. And so to kind of orient my thought process around this, I was asking myself, when planning lessons, how can this web tool better support my students' understanding of the material, rather than how can I make sure that I incorporate as many web tools as possible? Because generally incorporating a lot of new material can be really overwhelming and stressful for students. So you don't want to kind of like throw a whole bunch of new things at them and be like, okay, well, like now we're going to do something different. We're going to do something completely new next. And so it was kind of coming up with the balance between innovation and being creative in the classroom, with like that general sense of overwhelm to the point that those tools are just ineffective at the end. So for myself, again, I just asked myself, how can I actually effectively use web tools in the classroom? And also, where are there spots in my lesson plans that I think would benefit from a web tool, and where would it honestly be too much to have something like that? So I focused primarily on how to use these web tools to teach about German history, because I love German history, but I understand that that is something that can be really dense and really boring for students. So I wanted it to be like more interactive and more engaging for them. And so I came up with just different web tools that I was using that I felt really easily could translate both in person or online. And also, like, if you wanted to use a web tool, you could. It was also an activity that could easily be done without a web tool too, if you felt like it was just too much at that point. So I ended up coming up with something for Weimar, Germany, which just is like my shtick. I really love it. And I just had so much fun doing this, because there's so many web tools out there that you can come up with pretty much anything with a web tool. And like, I really just was having a blast doing this myself. And I didn't unfortunately have time to do it with my students, but I like just talking about it with my colleagues, like it just seems like a fun, innovative way to go about dealing with this. So yeah. It was really great. I really love the web tools. I'm telling y'all, there are so many out there.
Great. So the institute I attended was teaching language through the lens of social justice this past summer. And some key takeaways that I took from this institute were that it is not that difficult to align what I'm currently doing in my classes with social justice standards, and to tweak my current lessons and adapt it in order to give it a more social justice oriented focus. So a key component of this institute talked about looking at social justice standards and aligning our current curriculum and then developing curricular units based around these standards. So the ones that we used in this institute were laid out very concisely in this book that I have right here, Words and Actions, Teaching Language Through the Lens of Social Justice, which was actually co-written by Kathy Glenn and Beth Wassel, who are the leaders of this institute. Some of the key standards that we talked about were the social justice standards by Learning for Justice, which talk about identity, diversity, justice, and action, and developing student learning outcomes based around those. Also looking at Heather Kackman's 5 essential components of social justice education from her 2005 article, looking at content analysis, actions, personal reflection, multiple group dynamics, and just how to bridge all of those together and adapt curriculum to have a more social justice focused lens. All of these standards pair really well with actual standards, the world readiness standards. And I found that a lot of these standards fit in really well to things that I'm already doing. And with fairly minimal effort on my part, I can easily shift the focus of what I'm already doing in order to have it be slightly more oriented towards social justice. So what I took away from this institute and what I developed as part of this was I adapted a current unit I had for first semester French, the first unit of the semester where we look at introductions and identity, the first few days of the classes where we go over how to introduce yourself, how to give basic information about yourself, how to share identity markers yourself with your classmates and others. So this was for a class I taught last fall at St. Aug College. And I adapted this unit shaped around the essential questions of what information do you share about yourself, in what context and why, and what factors influence what information gets shared, what information you share, and also what information gets shared about different identity groups that you belong to. So my lesson, the lesson I'm going to talk about focused on gender identity in French language. So what I did with my classes was, I think this was the second day of the semester, we talked about introductions and also introductions using pronouns. So in French, a lot of times, at least a lot of the students that I have coming into my classes who have previously had exposure to French, they will just have experience using either male or female pronouns, so either il or elle. And then also for new learners of the language that I had in my classes, just how do you introduce yourself with names and also give pronouns? And this fits in well with the action piece of social justice standards, where it's like you want to correctly identify the genders of the people in your classroom so you don't misidentify any of your fellow students or anyone in your classes. So we talked about introductions using pronouns. I showed images of different people from different French-speaking regions who use different pronouns. Elle, il, but also different gender-neutral or non-binary pronouns such as al or el. And I showed students examples of these people. I had a little text bubble and I said, the French equivalent of my name is this. I use this pronoun. So it would be like, my name is Chloe. I use she, they pronouns. And then you would have that would be shown to students in French. So modeling that using native speakers who actually use those pronouns, and then giving students the linguistic tools to introduce themselves and also ask their classmates, what pronouns do you use? And then giving students the linguistic tools to be able to do that in order to then have them be able to use that with their classmates for the rest of the semester. So that was a way I incorporated things I learned in this institute into my classes. This is also something that I'm looking more into in one of my dissertation chapters. So overall, this institute was fantastic. I loved it. It was just an incredible experience, and I had so many great takeaways from it. Thank you so much.
Okay, as an access measure, I'm a white woman with long brown hair and a maroon shirt. And I didn't know when I was preparing my slide that we'd be grieving the loss of more Black men murdered by the police, Lowe and Nichols. I changed what I was going to say just to recognize our students' collective grief, our grieving. So here we are. This is still relevant. Chloe just explained to you how to do the social justice standards. And so I guess I'm pointing to the why. As Chloe mentioned, they focus really well on, by analogy, with ACTFL. So it's not just the TripAdvisor version. Oh, now we have Montreal, not just Paris. It's not just representing people of different races and abilities, genders, but digging in a little bit more into critical thinking. If we are talking about a city, who can protest, who can't protest because of ability or they're being targeted by the state sanctioned violence. And so it's not representation, it's not just diversity, it's anti-racist, it's disability justice, and what vocabulary words are missing, like Chloe just said. What identities are missing. How can we show empathy? That's one of the standards. And a visual description of this image is in the archives of Pavarini, who photographs protests as an art form, representing protests. And this is in Justice pour Adama Traoré. He was murdered by the police. And so the image shows Black men locking arms at the Place de la République. So at the advanced French level, 3000, you start getting Sartre, you start getting like being an engaged subject, and the French level protest. So all of our philosophy is based on engagement. And then the question is, what kind of engagement do we want to show our students, especially if they were protesting last weekend, and what are they going through? And I taught a lesson based on the documentary, Monopoly of Violence. Last semester, I can give you all the details at my table. But yeah, as Chloe said, 10 out of 10 stars, like this is a great institute.
Hello, I'm Kyle Prinza, and like Rachel, I attended using the web for communicative language learning. And I'm talking about one of the tools. She mentioned there were lots of tools, so just focusing in on one for my presentation. I've taught courses in person, of course, and then with one student in Zoom world, the rest in the classroom, and then classes all on Zoom. One thing I get tired of is always going into a breakout room and the amount of time it takes to go into the room, out of the room, sharing my screen, creating a screenshot so they can see that screen when they're in the breakout room. And so when I learned about Gather or Gather Town, as I think it used to be called, it just shows up as Gather now. I see a lot of possibilities there that could speed up or be better for certain types of activities. In this online classroom, you create your own avatar that can walk around the space. This is only a small section of what your classroom might look like, one section of it. This is the lunch tables right here. You can have different spaces. You can adapt your spaces. You can write labels on. You can add links to videos. Right here's a link to a Google Doc in this room. There is a whiteboard where they can write and draw on them that I put in those rooms there. You can design them for a certain number of people that can be in each room. You occupy a chair and you go in there. The freedom of mobility is, I think, is one of the best things here. Oh, you see, here's my avatar right there. You can design them with different hair, facial hair, clothing. I gave it a name, right? And so when you meet up with somebody, like in this image over here, you come into a space within a couple blocks of them. Their image, their video shows up immediately with their information. If you churn away from them, you can no longer talk to them. So you turn your back and you you can't talk to them anymore. You have to be in the region and be facing them. But when you're in a room, you're all facing towards the center, you can communicate that way. Freedom of movement would be great for jigsaw activity, for example. That seems to be impossible to do in Zoom. I haven't figured out a way I could do that. But here you could have this they working on one part of the big project. When they finish, get the information, watch the video, whatever, they can actively leave and join in the new conversation to get the information there. So the adaptability is great. You can change colors, you can add different furniture, and you can move around the space. There are spots where you can have your own individual office, private time. I think it's designed for people in the office world, but I see a lot of ways it can be useful in the language learning classroom. Yeah, you can broadcast to a large area of the room. You can add like a little microphone here to broadcast to the room if you wanted to do that. But I still think Zoom would be best for presentation type of mode where presenting information. Here would be student interaction and exchange of information. So this would come later in your units and probably at a higher level. I myself haven't had a chance to use it yet because I think it's better for a second semester or a third semester class and getting to that point now in the semester. Thanks. That's
Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming here. So I attended the Institute teaching English politeness and intercultural awareness. So I'm just going to show you so briefly the main takeaways that I got from this institute. So first of all, learning the language requires more than acquiring the composition of the language per se. It is necessary to understand the pragmatic features to know how the language really works. Because the fact that you know how the grammar rules work, that you get all the skills, like how to listen, how to read, how to write, is not a warranty that you're able to communicate something like in an appropriate way. So, for instance, if you can see in this segment, in Spanish, you can say, can you move a little, please? I cannot see it. And you can use as well, document is not transparent. At the end, it's the same meaning, but of course, you cannot use this in all the contexts with everybody. You have to know how to use it, when, who you can say this to, who you cannot do it. So that's why for me, means are a good tool that allows students to get engaged with the language while learning how to communicate something in different scenarios. Because these can work as a tool for you to work like the extralinguistic contextual factors like power, that is the difference of social status of the people where you're talking to. Distance reflects the perceived level of social familiarities between the people that you're talking to, and intensity that refers to the significance or gravity of the message that it wants to give in the interaction. So using this way to work in all those contexts allows you to acquire that pragmatic ability of the language. Because that's really the learning and understand the variety of communication context in order to express something assertively. So, in my perspective, working with memes is a really kind of fun way to work with the students to get them be engaged with the classroom. And besides just working the pragmatic awareness, you can work as well with them in idioms or variations, dialects, like in Spanish or depending on the language you teach. So you just can get so much from these kind of tools. So the institute just allows you to work in many options. You have you just choose. And in my case, I chose this one because I think this is something really fun for students and it works as well with humor. So it's a good way to kind of create community and just work well with your students. So that's it. Thank you.